Okay, we'll go ahead and get going. We're going to do a presentation today on what's new in Creo Simulate 4. I'm Joshua Fontana. I'll be doing the presentation. So for the agenda, first of all, we'll do a short introduction of boundary systems, and then we'll talk about what's new in Creo Simulate 4, and then we'll have a question and answer at the end of the presentation. If you do have questions, feel free to just type them into the GoToWebinar dialog box there as we go throughout the presentation. Then I'll take a look at them afterwards, okay? So about boundary systems, we're a tech leader dealing with partners including PTC, Solid Thinking, eTraj, ZWCAD, and other companies. We're rated the number 16th fastest growing private company in the greater Cleveland area, whose companies or capabilities deal with product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and product development. And here over to the right, you can see just some of the companies that we deal with on a regular basis there. So some of our awards and accolades include Inc. 5000 and the Weatherhead 100. And other accreditations from PTC would include the Windshield Certified Implementer. We're also a PTC Certified Service Provider and a Certified Training Partner. So if you have any your windshield needs, we can come in and deal with that. And also any of your training needs, we have a facility in Cleveland that we do training at, and we also have facilities in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and Detroit and Chicago and all over the place. So feel free to check out our website. I'll show you that a little bit later to show you more about our training. So some of our solutions offered here from PTC, of course, which we'll be showing today. Solid Thinking, eTraj, and ZWCAD. And again, I am Joshua Fontana. Feel free to toss me an email at jfontana@boundarysys.com if you have any questions about anything Creo related. Or if you have any sales questions, feel free to contact Mike Kotlaski with his email provided there. Okay, so first of all, we'll get right into the simulation stuff. So once you get into Creo Simulate, you'll notice that you'll be notified of changes and issues that require your attention while you're working with Simulate objects and features. Okay, so the Notification Center provides a single access point to quickly identify common model issues. In addition, Simulate objects and features are listed in the feature status column in the model tree with a status such as failed, suppressed, or out of session. This makes it easier to monitor, identify, locate, and fix design issues. Next is new material enhancements. So over 50 standard materials are provided for free with the standard installation giving access to standard materials within Creo Simulate. There's also a new material mode or node in the model tree for easy assignment of materials. And you can see that there up at the top of the model tree picture. There's the materials node there that has all the materials associated with, in this case, that part. So the materials dialog box has also been updated with a dynamic property panel. So some of these properties, as I'll show you during the demonstration, are coming from the Granta Material Intelligence Library. Okay, so there's quite a few materials associated with that. Okay, also with the model tree, you can select an analysis and right-click to run, stop, or display the results, as we see there. You can create a new analysis by right-clicking the analysis node. Also, icons representing the status of the analysis are updated automatically. This makes it easier to create, run, and review your analysis. Okay, next is improvements to the display of tolerances. So before, your tolerances would overlap with your world coordinate system. So tolerance displays have been relocated in Creo Simulate to avoid overlap with the Simulate coordinate system. The tolerance is located to the left of the coordinate system while in Creo Simulate. The tolerance moves back to the right when you go back into Creo Parametric if you're using the Simulate inside of Parametric. And this is kind of a nice one I've been using quite a bit, is now you have the mini toolbar in Creo Simulate. So there's support for the mini toolbar in Creo Simulate for actions frequently performed such as loads and constraints. You can select the geometry with the left mouse button and you'll see the mini toolbar pop up. You can also still utilize the right mouse button and get the right mouse button menu. This gives you the ability to apply and edit entities without using the ribbon, so it saves some time. You can also fully customize the mini toolbar to suit your needs. And what I found with the default mini toolbar, the default one shown there in the graphic, I've actually customized mine so it has a little bit more constraints and loads there. So again, I'm not going up to the ribbon all the time to select which constraint or load set that I need. Okay, now, excuse me, there's contacts or improvements for contact interfaces. So in both part and assembly, you can select the check for contact within component checkbox to automatically detect contact within the components, as you see there in the two graphics of the dialog boxes. This checkbox is in both the model setup and the auto detect contact dialog box. When working in an assembly, the new collector is available to specify the components to analyze. From the model setup dialog box, you can control contact properties when using contact as a default interface. This reduces the time it takes to manually create multiple contacts. Okay, so using or adjusting models easier with flexible modeling in Creo Simulate. So you can access Creo's flexible modeling tools within Creo Simulate. So whether you're an integrated or standalone Simulate, you can easily modify and explore new configurations of your designs. Okay. This also goes with, of course, dealing with flexible modeling. You can manipulate your step files and things of that nature to further meet your design intent. Okay. So a flexible modeling C is required within your license to enable for this to work out, though. But even without a flexible modeling license, you still get the new remove tool in the editing group in Creo Simulate. So that allows you to quickly remove features to simplify your designs for simulation. This improvement reduces the need to return to Creo Parametric to simplify your data and go back and forth. And it promotes the use of flexible modeling. Okay, next is weld connection improvements. So weld features can be automatically detected in models. Okay, so in Simulate, a new weld connections are created for all weld features that are found. In the Auto Detect Weld Features dialog box, the Override Weld Feature Setting checkbox is added to the surface-to-surface weld properties and the edge-to-edge surface weld property areas in the dialog boxes, as we see there in the graphic. There's also support for solid welds for fillets, plug or slot, butt, and spot type welds. In Creo Simulate, a new weld feature is analyzed as solid geometry rather than surfaces. As a result of the improvements, there is an automated process for creating solid welds, and there are high quality welds. Next is data exchange improvements. So the file menu in Creo Simulate is now consistent with the file menu in Creo Parametric. The process for saving results to Windchill is improved as well, while support for annotations and queries in PTC Creo View output improves the exchange of information with PTC Creo View. And this is kind of a nice one, I thought, is now you can synchronize your orientations. So you can synchronize and lock the orientation of a series of result windows. So whenever you rotate one of the windows, one of the models in the window, it'll rotate all of them. Or if you zoom in or zoom out or what have you. Okay, next we'll talk about some lattice structures associated with additive manufacturing. So I do want to note we did do a additive manufacturing webinar a little while back, so I'm not going to go into depth of how to actually create these lattice structures, but just want to talk about the lattice structures in reference to Simulate. So really, these lattice structures are designed to greatly decrease the mass of your parts or assemblies while keeping the structural integrity intact. Okay? So you can utilize these lattice structures as needed in your part or assembly designs. Okay, so the standard workflow for this would be first to, let's say we have this part and we do a analysis on it. So we apply some loads, constraints, and then give it a mesh and view the results. And we see within the material and the design criteria there, simulation pumps out a stress value of 36 36 MPa. So with the yield being 140 MPa, we know that that part is a little overbuilt. So we know we can decrease the mass there. So we see the mass value there of about 6 kilograms. So what we'll do, we'll go into and apply a lattice structure, okay? So it hollows out the inside portion of that and creates beams within the part. And I seem to be missing part of my presentation. Yeah, so let's just show it like this. Okay, so once we put our lattice in there, we see that the initial lattice design here now has a mass of 3.5 kilograms, which is a reduction of 42%. Okay, so that's pretty good reduction there, while the stress value is still half of its yield. So we can still refine that a little bit more if we wanted to. So after we optimize the design a little bit more, we come up with a final lattice structure to meet our design needs. So now we can decrease the mass with the new lattice to about 3.25 kilograms, which takes it to 46% reduction in weight. And we see the von Mises here is still 104 megapascals, which is below yield. So it'll still hold up to the loads and constraint sets that you have applied. Okay, so that's all I have for slides. So again, I'm Joshua Fontana from Boundary Systems. That's my email. Feel free to toss me any questions that you have to my email if you desire. So let me show you some of the functionality in Creo. Okay, so here's a part we have here that we would like to do some analysis on. So first we'll go ahead and check out the material properties. So we need to apply some materials. So I'm in standard Creo Parametric here. We can go to prepare model properties, and then I see I have no materials assigned. So just the standard way, we can go to change that, and we see these this new folder in here. So we have the old legacy materials, but we can also use this system of folders here for these new materials. So we see we have ceramics and glasses in here. So there's a bunch of material files in there, composites, elastomers and rubbers, ferrous metals, and etc. Okay. And of course, you can add to this library. You can manipulate them as needed. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose a ferrous metal here, maybe a steel low carbon. Okay, so I'll double click that to add it to the material of this part. We'll say OK, that looks good, and close. So again, we see up here there's a new materials node that shows that material that we added to this part. So next we'll go ahead and apply some constraints and loads real quick. So we'll have to go into simulate, and then we would like to apply a load to these holes. So I'll go ahead and select this surface here. We see the mini toolbar pops up. Okay, so again, this isn't the default. I have customized this mini toolbar to so that it has this extra bearing load case in here. So you can easily customize this just by right-clicking on it and then go to Customize, and then adding functionality to this mini toolbar here. So you can either filter through the commands with the search here by selecting them and then just dragging them up into the mini toolbar. Or if you know where they are in the interface, you can grab them just from the interface. So let's see, there's a displacement planer. Let's grab this ball constraint and we'll drag it over here. Okay. Oh, shortcut's not available for that one, but in this case, this displacement one is here twice now, but I can remove that. So I know I'm going to be using this bearing load quite a bit, so that's why I went ahead and added it to my mini toolbar. Same with my symmetry constraint. So I went ahead and added that to my mini toolbar because I use that on a regular basis. Okay. So now I can select the surface and then go ahead and add my bearing load, define the load just the same way you would before. And give it a preview to verify, and that looks good. Okay. And I'll add a couple more loads here. So again, I don't need to go up to the ribbon to do that. I can just come in here and quickly apply some loads. And the one thing you'll notice is that whenever I select these surfaces, notice in the model tree, it highlights that feature. So I know this is hole 818. Okay. And I know this one is hole 792. So that's pretty nice, especially if you actually rename your holes to something logical. Okay, so in this case, we'll go ahead and apply another bearing load here and give it its specific values. Give it a preview, okay, and one more here. And then again, I need some more constraints here. So in this case, this surface is going to act as its symmetry. Add another constraint here. Okay, we'll free up the Z. And we want some pin constraints at these cylindrical features here. Okay. So again, I've added that right to my mini toolbar. So we see how quickly we can add these constraints. Okay. So of course, once you add your constraints and loads and materials, you can go ahead and mesh your model. And I'm not going to run any analysis on this. I already have some results created. So we don't have to wait for that. But you'll notice over here in the model tree, we have our loads and constraints here and that we can manipulate as needed. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about real quick is flexible modeling. So again, we're in Creo Simulate now. We have a new flexible modeling tab that has all the functionality of standard flexible modeling. Okay, so we have the remove tool here, but like I said, without the license, you won't get this tab. But what they've done for you is added this remove functionality in the Refine Model tab here, Editing Group. So in this case, if I would like to, let's say, remove this extra tab here, so I can select some of these surfaces and hope it does not mess up, and we can see that it removes that geometry for me. Now, of course, since we had a load there or a constraint there, that constraint fails. But in this is just to show that flexible modeling can be used quite a bit in your simulate analysis. So let me go ahead and undo that. We see also that the simulate, let me go ahead and go to the model tree. So we have to have these features on to see that. So we see the simulation features here. Here's that remove that gets stored there, okay? So I can go ahead and delete that, and then my geometry goes back to normal. Okay, so let's go ahead and review some results here. So here's after I run some analysis here, I have my results displayed. So I see each one of these windows are initially by default independent from each other, okay? So that may be undesirable because I want to see, here we happen to have some max stress values in this area. And I want to be able to zoom in on the area in each one of these rather than doing it manually, okay? So that could take a while. So the one thing I could do is I can tie the orientations together. So I'll select tie orientation and then select these other two orientations. So I see in this case, these two are together. And then I'll select this one and now they're all tied together. So if I zoom in here, they all zoom to the same location. If I rotate, they all rotate, okay? So you'll notice if you have a space navigator or the space mouse or what have you, there's a little delay in between. So if I rotate this view, once I let go and stop rotating, these all update. If you just use your standard mouse, then it updates dynamically. That may just be my case because my space mouse is kind of old, but I did notice that. Okay, so once you're all done, we can repaint and then go back to normal here. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so let's see what else we have to talk about here. So we talked about the mini toolbar, flexible modeling, and synchronizing your display. So let's talk about the welds. So let's get rid of this here. We don't need this anymore. And we don't need this model. Okay, so here we have a structure here that we would like to analyze. So we see most of these are standard, simple, thin-bodied objects, so that we're going to weld together. So in this case, we need some extra weld over here and here on both sides of this this support bracket. Okay, so let me go ahead and close this here. Yeah, we're in Creo Simulate now, as you can see. Let's go back and go to the applications welding and then add some weld here. So I'd like to add a fillet weld, and if we go to the locations tab, we can set this up. Okay, so the initial side 1 is going to be these two surfaces. You can always use the right mouse button, go to side 2 also, or just pick it from the interface. Okay. Then side 2 is going to be this surface and the back surface. So we see that it creates those weld surfaces by default. Okay. So the nice thing about Creo 4 is that there's an option to change that from a surface to a solid now. Okay. So now it adds, essentially it adds side surfaces and solidifies them. Excuse me. So let's change the size of the weld to something a little more appropriate. And then also add some weld material. Okay, so we have actual information associated with the material of the weld. So once we have that all set up, we can continue. So we see that it creates these nice solid welds for us. So just to verify, we can go ahead and do a quick section here. And we see that it does make nice solid welds at these intersections. Okay, so now we have our weldment all defined now. We can go into Simulate and then start defining our simulation. So what's nice in Creo Simulate that's new is that you can review your geometry, okay, just like you could. And let's see, we'll deselect a lot of these here. Let's say apply. We see we have nothing by default, okay? But what we can do is go to the welds pull down and detect weld features that already exist. So I'll go ahead and detect these weld features, and I'll detect them on the entire of these components. Okay, within a certain thickness, and that's fine. So we'll go ahead and select Start, and we see now that we have in here, we have in our connections group, we have all these weld connections in here. We can go ahead and verify that by checking the geometry. Okay, so since a lot of these are these parts are thin-bodied objects, we can go ahead and use some shells to simplify this model even further. We could just go ahead and, since it's not a large design, we could just go ahead and mesh this if we needed to. But here we're going to go ahead and utilize the detect shell pairs, and then go ahead and select these parts and add a characteristic thickness of 0.5 units. Since some of our welds are around that size, and say Start. And again, we have in idealizations, we have our weld pairs lined up here. And then you can also view those shells with your simulation geometry check. Okay, so this is simplified pretty well. So now I feel confident that I can go ahead and apply some mesh. So we'll wait for that to go, and we see, we'll take a closer look here, that our weld features are being meshed also. Since they're 3D and solid, and they've been meshed well. Okay. So I'm not going to go ahead and run any analysis. Of course, you could always, optimize this design after the fact. But just to show you how the welds work there in Creo Simulate. Okay, so let's check to see if we have any questions here. And again, if you do have any, feel free to pop them into the GoToWebinar dialog box so I can take a look at them. So we do have some questions. Let's see. Okay, so the one question is is a question about Simulate Light. How many of these features are still available? Okay, so the differences between Creo Simulate and Simulate Light is really a restriction of a lot of things. So a lot of these new features are going to only be associated with a full version of Creo Simulate. So if we take a look-see, so we'll go to Model Setup and say Simulate Light. So we see this initially has more than 200 surfaces, so this alone can't be analyzed with Simulate Light. Let me see if the other model is okay. For a light simulation. Yeah, okay. So here's your standard process guide for Simulate Light that you would have to set up. Let me just quickly assign some materials and constraints. That's materials. So we see right now we don't have the ability to just select these with our mini toolbar because it's constraining us to use this dialog box. So let's just select this and say close and loads. Same thing here. I have no mini toolbar. So we'll just apply a quick load here just for sake, and close and next, and then analysis. So there are a lot of restrictions in Simulate Light. Okay, another question is, can you publish FEA results to your thing mark? Okay, so that's a good question. I am not really ramped up on the ThingWorks subject matter. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Another question here is there a way that you can fill in a safety factor and then get results on a reduced material. Yeah, so you could let me exit this. So you'd probably have to run a design study or optimization and able to accomplish that. Or essentially what you could do is yeah, I'd have to think about that. I'll be sure to be contacting you to try to find a solution for you on that. Okay, so another question is about the welds there is if they can be staggered. That's a good question. So yeah, all your standard weld functionality hasn't changed. So if I go ahead and exit Creo Simulate here and back to the weld, all of this functionality is still the same. So the only thing that's really changed as far as the welds is the ability to convert those to a solid weld, okay, rather than just having surfaces, okay. So yeah, they could be staggered if need be. So that's what this icon here allows us to do, have staggered welds, and allows you to define the placement and so on. Good question. Okay, don't see any more questions coming in. So let me go ahead and round off the webinar by showing you some of these websites. So again, here's the Boundary System website that you can view our training schedule, locations, and course offerings. Also other events, so further webinars. If you're interested, you can check out our webinar schedule and register for them as needed. So there's quite a few coming up here, and Creo 5 is going to be coming out soon. So we'll have an introduction to what's new in Creo 5 coming out later this month. And another nice thing that we like to offer is hands-on workshops, okay? So these are basically free training for your engineers or designers. So we have, in this case, a Creo 5 hands-on workshop coming up soon in multiple locations, okay? So the Creo 5 morning session, and then in the afternoon, there's a mechanism design and design automation session. So you can come to one or you can come to both. You just have to register for them so we can apply the appropriate amount of hardware. Okay, so there's also coming up is Inspire hands-on workshops. Okay, coming up at the end of March, it looks like. Okay, so if you're interested in any of those hands-on workshops, feel free to contact Boundary Systems or send Connor an email here, and he'll be sure to get back to you. Okay, so next is the material library. So that material library is coming from this company called Granta. Okay, so they supply a lot of material information to companies. So PTC has allowed, as you see here, there's 117 commonly used engineering materials that you can just grab, okay? So they already have densities and other engineering properties associated with them. So that's where that information is coming from. So you can always check out this website, grantadesign.com/PTC, to grab the sample data. And next is the YouTube channel for boundary systems. I referenced this earlier in correlation to the additive manufacturing webinar. So you can come into our boundary systems YouTube channel and check out some of our other webinars. There are a lot of great information in here that you can view. And our additive manufacturing webinar is down here. So there's flexible modeling there. It was right here somewhere. But you can find it pretty quickly in here. There's additive manufacturing there, okay? So again, that's you can view these at your leisure. Okay, so it looks like that's all the questions. So let me go ahead real quick and show you my information again. My contact information is jfontaine@boundarysys.com, and sales guy Mike Kotlowski. You can contact him for any of your sales related questions. I just want to thank you for your time and let you know to have a good day.